Athens, a city that dates back more than 2,500 years. Named after the goddess Athena, its ancient temples formed the backdrop to the bustling metropolis it is today. It's been called the cradle of democracy and the birthplace of Western civilization. It's the staging point for excursions to a rich historical past, mixed with myth and legend. Join us as we explore the treasures of Athens. Located by the Aegean Sea, the capital of Greece, Athens is an ancient historical time capsule. The home of the great philosopher Socrates attracts 6 million visitors a year. Come with us as we explore iconic ancient landmarks. Witness the pageantry of a daily military tradition. Shop and sample genuine Greek-Italian cuisine in the famous Plaka. And take an excursion to see fantasy like monasteries in the sky. We begin by exploring the sights of Athens, capital of Greece. From there, we'll take an excursion to sites of great historical significance. Passing Thermopylae, the place of a legendary battle, we'll visit Delphi, famous for its oracle who prophesied to kings. Finally, we'll visit majestic monasteries atop the towering pillars of rock at Meteora. When you think of Athens, one of the most common images that comes to mind is its iconic landmark and literal high point, the Acropolis. It conspicuously stands 156 meters or 512 feet above the city, defining its heritage. You can't miss it. The ancient citadel we see today dates back to the 5th century BC. As you ascend, you might notice the Herodion, a theatre with a capacity of 5,000 people, completed in 161 AD. After restoration work, it's still being used today for music festivals. Once you get to the top of your climb, you can see the remains of 3 ancient buildings. First, you're greeted by the Propylaea, which forms the gate of the Acropolis. And you can't miss the Erection, with its columns sculpted into priestesses. But the most conspicuous building is the Parthenon, dedicated to Athena. Outside once stood a 30-foot or 9-meter bronze statue of Athena. And inside the Parthenon, another 40-foot or 12-meter statue of the goddess stood as high as the ceiling, made of gold and ivory. Although it was built for the Greek gods, during the Byzantine period, the Parthenon was used as a church. And during the Ottoman occupation, it was converted into a mosque, complete with a towering minaret. Tragically, during a siege by the Venetians in 1687, the structure suffered significant damage. Being used to store gunpowder at the time, it was hit by artillery. The resulting explosion tore off the roof and destroyed a number of its columns. Since 1975, a restoration project has been painstakingly piecing back together the marble, although some parts of this project have been controversial. This is why you'll always see scaffolding and cranes around the site. As you take in the wide views from the top, you can see the sprawling metropolis below, and other ancient ruins surrounding the hill, just waiting to be explored. Athens has a good underground train system, but if you're prepared for the heat with your water bottle and hat, and have a reasonable degree of fitness, many of the attractions can be seen by simply walking around the Acropolis. Most Western visitors come from modern cities, so if the thought of being in a time machine makes you go, wow, as you reflect on the fact that the attractions are 2,500 years old, you're in for a treat. You'll find yourself in a time warp when you walk up the Hill of Muses, named after the statues of muses looking down over the city. The hill offers you great views looking back towards the Acropolis. At ground level, you'll also pass structures like Hadrian's Library, the Roman Agora, once a center of commerce, and the Temple of Hephaestus, dedicated to Hephaestus, god of blacksmiths and fire. Legend once suggested that the Greek hero Theseus was buried here. It was constructed in the 5th century BC and is one of the most well-preserved ancient structures in Athens, mainly due to being used as a church in the more recent 7th century. Okay, so to enhance your appreciation of what you're looking at, the temple features Doric columns. These are columns with a simple plate-like cap on top. The Parthenon has the same design feature. About 100 years later, in the 6th century BCE, the Greek classical period evolved to the Ionic column, featuring scroll-like designs at the top, as seen here on the Erection. And from the 5th century BCE, masons made these even more decorative with Corinthian columns, as seen here at the Temple of Zeus, also within walking distance of the Acropolis. Although only a few columns at this site remain, you can tell this was once a colossal structure, one of the largest temples ever built. Sadly, the edifice succumbed to demolition orders during the Byzantine period, and also to earthquakes. The concept of a government ruled by the people, for the people, was conceived here thousands of years ago by the ancient Athenians. We call this democracy. So it's only fitting that we take a 10 to 15 minute walk from the Temple of Zeus to Constitution Square. It's the forecourt to the Greek Parliament, once the royal palace. At the top of every hour, the changing of the guard takes place. And at the bottom of the hour, they undergo this carefully choreographed ritual with precision in front of the tomb of the unknown soldier. Between changes, these sentries stand perfectly still. Don't let their tight skirts or pom-poms fool you into thinking these men can't fight. The uniforms are highly symbolic of bravery. It is said their skirts have 400 folds, symbolizing each year of Ottoman occupation. Constitution Square took its name from the constitution demanded of King Otto in 1843 by the people. If you walk past the gates of the Temple of Zeus again, and the statue of Alexander, you'll soon come to the Panathenaic Stadium. The 2,300-year-old stadium was rebuilt in the 19th century for the first modern Olympic Games in 1896 and is made entirely of marble. It has a capacity for 50,000 spectators. It's only fitting that the marathon had its historical roots in Athens, when the soldier Phidippides ran 25 miles after the Battle of Marathon to give news of their victory to the Athenians before collapsing and dying from exhaustion. Till this day, here is where the Olympic flame begins its journey. It travels to wherever in the globe the opening ceremony of the Olympic Games are held. Walk up this ramp to the adjoining museum and you can see the torches used for all of the Olympic Games since 1896. The classical stadium is still used for sports events today, and concerts. If you're lucky, you might even see a free rehearsal featuring some famous local star singing much-loved Greek songs. If you can find accommodation at the Plaka, you'll be right in the heart of the action. Like all of the sites we visited, the Plaka is situated right below the Acropolis. It's full of shops where you can buy that unique souvenir, watch entertainers, and there are cafes everywhere. How about ending the day with a drink? Genuine Greek moussaka or a gourmet pizza. Perhaps find a restaurant with a rooftop terrace where you can gaze at the Acropolis by night. It'll have to be an early night though, because tomorrow we're up before dawn for a road trip to discover ancient treasures of history and legend. When you come to Athens, make sure you allow time to take excursions to see some of the amazing wonders of Greece. To see what we're about to show you, a lot of organised tours will take you out of Athens for one or more nights. We, however, pull off our excursion in a single day. Hiring a private driver, we set off north before the sun comes up for a 14-hour round trip, stopping at Thermopylae to honour the 300 Spartans. Thermopylae is at the crossroads between Delphi and Meteora. We'll first take the road to Delphi, then head back past Thermopylae to Meteora.
Go, tell to Sparta, thou who passest by, that here obedient to her laws we lie.
With these words, the poet Simonides of Chios eulogized the 300 Spartans who died here at Thermopylae. If you saw the movie 300, you'll know the story of King Leonidas and his 300 Spartans. Supported by 7,000 other Greeks, they held off a 300,000 strong invading Persian army by blocking a narrow pass. This historic event took place on these grounds. Before the final battle, Leonidas told the 7,000 Greeks to withdraw in order to save themselves, leaving him only with his 300 to hold off the Persians. The statue of a Spartan soldier honors those who remained and died heroically defending their lands. Their sacrifice bought the Greeks time to organize. A month later, they defeated the Persians at Salamis. The ancient Greeks thought Delphi was the center of the world, so over the years they built a city with temples to honor Apollo, god of light, poetry, music, and prophecy. People came from everywhere to learn about their future, including kings seeking guidance from the wise and prophetic sayings of the oracle. No important decision was made without consulting her. For this reason, no other position of influence was more powerful for nearly 1,000 years than that of the oracle. It's believed the oracle collected intelligence from people who came from all over Greece to ask for advice, so this influenced the counsel she gave. It's also believed the oracle's sayings were the results of the hallucinogenic effects of fumes she would inhale from the thermal activity coming from beneath the ground. The answers to questions put to her were often in cryptic riddles subject to interpretation. Although presented as a fantasy film, the movie 300 tries to portray this when Leonidas consults with the oracle before deciding to go to war. The city also became prosperous, attracting visitors to the Pythian Games, a precursor to the Olympic Games. Entry to the ancient site includes access to the museum, where you can see interesting artifacts preserved for us today. All have their own story. Like the bronze charioteer of Delphi, dedicated to Apollo for helping the donor win a chariot race. Although only the driver remains, this is what the sculpture once looked like. Outside, you'll see the remains of the Temple of Apollo, the treasury of the Athenians, and the bronze serpent column, and the Tholos of Delphi, a temple making up part of the sanctuary of Athena. It stands just outside of the enclosure where we saw the other ancient ruins, so you can gain access to this one for free. Ironically, this free site is perhaps the most recognized part of Delphi. Driving back past Thermopylae, excitement builds as we head north in search of fantasy-like monasteries in the sky. At Meteora. Sculptured over 60 million years from geological movements, this UNESCO World Heritage Site is a marvel of natural sandstone pillars that reach to the heavens. To keep themselves safe from invaders, monks initially made homes from the caves within these mountainous towers of rock, high above ground. Then, from the 11th century, they climbed to the very top, and through a combination of scaffolding and ropes, they built 24 monasteries, delicately balanced atop these towering rock formations, some of which are over 600 meters, nearly 2,000 feet in the air. Today, only 6 remain. Thanks to the addition of steps, modern roads and footbridges, you can visit them for a small fee. But you still have to climb hundreds of steps in some cases. This one is the Holy Monastery of St. Stephen. Unfortunately, we weren't allowed to film the richly decorated holy interiors, but the gardens outside give us a glimpse of how the monks live and care for their home dedicated to their faith. The park-like grounds of the Holy Monastery of Valam are particularly beautiful. Like all monasteries here, it offers incredible views of the world below. Today, it is occupied by only 7 monks who must feel that this compact paradise is like heaven on earth. Just remember, there is a dress code when you visit to show respect for these holy sites. Men must wear long trousers and women long skirts. They must also cover their shoulders, and no sleeveless shirts are allowed. This is an example of a winch built to hoist people and supplies up and down in crude elevators attached to hooks. The Monastery of the Holy Trinity was featured in the James Bond movie For Your Eyes Only, where the famous spy character played by Roger Moore climbed the perilous rock face to infiltrate a villain's stronghold. Meteora is from the Greek meaning middle of the sky or suspended in air, a truly apt name for these surreal monasteries in the sky. Thermopylae, Delphi, and Meteora are excursions to the north of Athens where you can marvel at the amazing treasures we just saw. However, Athens is also used as the departure point to the south across the Aegean Sea. Here's where you can board a ferry in the port of Piraeus to some of the 6,000 stunningly beautiful and very romantic Greek islands. But we'll save that for another video. Make sure you check it out. To visit Athens is to understand how the past influenced the present. Much of its ancient architecture may be in ruins, but the people who built it were also the architects of a free society which we treasure today. Indeed, Athens is a treasure historically and in symbolism, and you'll be glad you came to marvel at all it has to offer.